You want to know what actually keeps people broke. It's not what they think it is. It's not the economy. It's not their salary. It's not student loans, although those don't help. It's not the housing market. It's not inflation. And it's definitely not some rigged system designed to keep you down. I've watched people come from nothing, genuinely nothing. Parents who couldn't make rent, neighborhoods where ambition was mocked, and build serious, lasting wealth. And I've watched people with six-figure salaries, solid educations, and every conceivable advantage end up at 50 years old with nothing to show for it. And after watching both of those outcomes play out more times than I can count, I can tell you exactly what separates them. It's not talent, it's not luck, it's a handful of small, repeatable financial habits that either compound in your favor over decades or quietly, invisibly, relentlessly compound against you. And the reason most people never fix them isn't because the fixes are complicated. It's because nobody ever sat them down and told them the truth hard enough for it to actually land. That's what I'm doing today. Everything I'm about to tell you, and I mean everything, is the kind of conversation that normally happens behind closed doors in private wealth management offices with people who have already made enough money to afford the advice. The rest of the world pays for it if they ever get access to it at all. You're getting it free right now. The only thing I'm asking you to do in return is hit subscribe, because if this is the kind of thinking you need in your life, and based on the fact that you're here, it probably is, then you should be here every time we publish. That's the deal. Subscribe, and let's get into it. The first mistake is the one that nobody wants to admit to because it's embarrassing. It's not knowing where your money goes. And before you tell yourself that you have a general sense of your spending, I want you to stop, because you probably don't. The Federal Reserve has studied this, not guessed at it, not theorized about it, studied it with real household data. And what they found is that the average American household underestimates their discretionary spending by hundreds of dollars every single month, not a rounding error, hundreds of dollars, which means right now, today, there's a very high probability that you are spending significantly more than you think you are. And the gap between what you think you spend and what you actually spend is the exact gap that's preventing you from getting ahead. Here's why this happens. The human brain is genuinely terrible at tracking small, frequent purchases. A $12 lunch doesn't feel like a financial decision. An $8 coffee doesn't feel like a financial decision. A $15 monthly subscription that you signed up for 2 years ago and haven't used since doesn't feel like anything because you've forgotten it exists. None of those individual transactions trigger any kind of financial alarm in your head because none of them are big enough to feel significant. But here's the math, and I need you to actually sit with this rather than letting it wash over you the way people let uncomfortable information wash over them when they're not ready to deal with it. $15 a day in small purchases. And honestly, $15 is low for most people. It's $450 a month. That's $5,400 a year. If you invested $5,400 every year in a broad market index fund at an 8% annual return, after 20 years, you'd have over $250,000. That's not $250,000 you'd have to work for. That's $250,000 your money would have built for you quietly in the background while you were living your life. Instead, it went to lunches you don't remember and subscriptions you don't use. I'm not saying never buy lunch. I'm not telling you to live like a monk and optimize every dollar to death, because that's not sustainable and it misses the actual point. The point is awareness. The point is making conscious decisions rather than letting money hemorrhage out of your account through 1,000 tiny cuts you never even felt. The fix here is embarrassingly simple, which is part of why people don't do it, because simple things that require consistent attention are actually harder than they look. Track your spending for 7 days. Every single transaction, not a month, because you'll give up. Just 7 days. Go back through your bank statements right now and look at the last 30 days, and I promise you will find things in there that genuinely surprise you. That surprise is the beginning of financial change. Not a budget, not a spreadsheet system, just awareness followed by a decision about whether each dollar is going where you actually want it to go. Mistake number two I've watched destroy people who had every reason to succeed financially, and it's called lifestyle inflation. It is seductive, it is nearly universal, and it is extraordinarily difficult to resist because it feels like a reward. Here's how it plays out. You're grinding, you're working hard, you get a raise or a promotion or a better job, and you deserve it. You genuinely earned it. And your brain, which has been watching you sacrifice and work and grind, immediately starts telling you that it's time to enjoy the fruits of that labor. So you move somewhere nicer, you start driving something better, the restaurants get a little more expensive, the vacations get a little more elaborate, the wardrobe gets upgraded, and none of it feels irresponsible at the moment because you can afford it. You checked, and the numbers work out. But here's what's actually happening beneath the surface. Every dollar you redirect toward lifestyle is a dollar that will never compound. It will never grow. It will never show up as wealth 20 years from now. It leaves your financial life permanently the moment you spend it. And if you keep spending every raise you get, you will be earning twice what you earn now in 10 years and wondering why you still feel financially stressed because your obligations will have grown to match your income. The Bureau of Labor Statistics has documented this pattern across income levels so consistently that it is essentially a law of consumer behavior. People spend what they make. That the antidote is not complicated, but it requires a commitment that you have to make before the raise hits your account, not after. Because after it's already there and your brain has already started attaching it to lifestyle improvements, it's significantly harder to redirect. The rule I give you is this. Every time your income increases, save or invest at least 50% of that increase before you do anything else with it. You get a $1,000 a month raise, $500 goes automatically into an investment account before it ever touches your checking account. You don't see it, you don't feel it, you don't miss it. And 20 years from now, that consistent habit is the difference between financial security and financial mediocrity. Now let's talk about mistake number three in the same breath because it's directly related, and it is the credit card trap. I want to be fair here because credit cards used correctly are actually a decent financial tool. The rewards are real. The consumer protections are real. And if you pay your balance in full every single month, you're essentially getting a free short-term loan with benefits attached. That's not the problem. The problem is that most people are not using them that way. The average credit card interest rate in the United States right now is over 20%, 20% annually. Do you understand what that means in practice? If you're carrying a $5,000 balance at 20% and making minimum payments, you will spend years paying that off and you will pay thousands of dollars in interest charges on top of the original balance. And what you have done is take the most powerful force in personal finance, compound interest, and pointed it directly at yourself. Instead of compounding working for you, building your wealth quietly in the background while you sleep, you have engineered a situation where compounding is working against you, extracting money from your life every month as punishment for spending money you didn't have. That is the opposite of investing. That is reverse wealth building. And the fix is not a negotiation. If you cannot pay the balance in full when the statement closes, you don't charge it, period. Mistake number four is the one that I think about the most because it is the most irreversible. You can dig out of credit card debt. You can course correct lifestyle inflation. You can rebuild financial awareness. But the one thing you cannot do, the one mistake that has a permanent and mathematical cost that no amount of future effort can fully undo, is waiting too long to start investing. And I want to be specific about why. Because the word compounding gets thrown around so casually in financial content that it has lost its ability to shock people the way it should. Let me give you two people. Person A is 25 years old and starts putting $200 a month into a broad market index fund. $200. That's $46 a week. That's what a lot of people spend on takeout. Person B is equally disciplined, equally capable, but waits until 35 to start. Same $200 a month, same investment choices, same 8% average annual return, same retirement at 65. Person A retires with approximately $700,000. Person B retires with approximately $300,000. I want you to really look at those numbers. The same monthly investment, the same discipline, the same everything. The only variable is a 10-year difference in start date, and it cost person B $400,000. Not because they did anything wrong after they started, not because they made bad decisions, just because they waited a decade, and that decade of compound growth was irreplaceable. You cannot work your way back to what compounding would have built for you if it had just had more time to work. And yet I talk to people in their late 20s and early 30s constantly who aren't investing yet. And when I ask them why, the answers are always some variation of the same theme. They're not ready. They want to learn more first. They're going to start when things settle down a bit financially, and they're waiting for the right moment. There is no right moment. There is only now and later. And later has a price attached to it that most people don't understand until it's too late to do anything about it. If you have $50 a month to invest, open an account today and invest $50. If you have $200, invest $200. If the idea of picking investments feels overwhelming, buy a total market index fund and stop overthinking it. The enemy of building wealth is not bad investments, it's inaction, disguised as preparation. Mistakes 5 and 6 deserve to be talked about together because they live in the same neighborhood of financial thinking, and that neighborhood is the dangerous place where people convince themselves that small things don't matter enough to address. Mistake 5 is having no emergency fund. This one is not about wealth building. This is about basic financial survival. And I say that not to be dramatic, but because the absence of an emergency fund is the single most reliable way to turn a manageable problem into a financial crisis. Your car needs a $1,200 repair. Unexpected? Yes, but not catastrophic for most people with any savings buffer at all. For someone with no emergency fund, that $1,200 goes on a credit card at 20% interest. And now a temporary setback has become a debt with compounding interest attached to it. And that debt is going to cost them real money every month for however long it takes to pay off, which is money they can invest, which is opportunity cost they will never recover. And that's a $1,200 problem. Medical bills can be 5 times that. Job loss can be orders of magnitude more disruptive. Financial planners have settled around 3 to 6 months of expenses as the right emergency fund target, and that is genuinely a good benchmark to work toward. But if 3 to 6 months feels so overwhelming that it paralyzes you into doing nothing, forget that number for now. Your first goal is $1,000 in cash savings sitting in a separate account that you do not touch for anything that is not a genuine emergency. That's it. Start there. Mistake 6 is the belief that small savings don't matter. And this one I want to dismantle completely because it is the excuse that keeps more people from starting than almost anything else. I hear it constantly. Saving $50 a month isn't going to change my life. It's a reasonable sounding statement that is mathematically wrong. $50 a month is $600 a year. Invested at 8% over 30 years, that becomes roughly $70,000. Not life-changing by itself, but genuinely not nothing either. Now, scale it up even modestly. $200 a month at the same return over the same period becomes close to $300,000. And the real point here isn't any specific number. The real point is that wealth is built incrementally through small, consistent behaviors repeated over long periods of time, not through a handful of dramatic financial decisions. The belief that small amounts don't matter is what keeps people waiting for a windfall, waiting for a raise, waiting for some future version of themselves who will have more to work with. And while they're waiting, they're not building. And the people who are building, even with small amounts, are quietly accumulating a significant advantage that becomes impossible to close later. Mistake number 7 is the one that underlies all the others, and fixing it is what makes fixing everything else possible. The mistake is not having a financial system. And I want to explain what I mean by that. Because system is one of those words that sounds more complicated than it is. What I mean is simply this. Most people manage their money reactively. Bills show up and they pay them. Spending happens and they accommodate it. Savings occur only if there's anything left at the end of the month, which there almost never is, because money expands to fill available space, the same way lifestyle expands to fill available income. Without a system, every financial decision is made in the moment under the influence of whatever your emotional state happens to be with whatever information you happen to have available. That's not a strategy. That's just hoping things work out. And hope is a terrible financial plan. A system changes the fundamental dynamic. It means your savings are moved automatically before you can spend them. It means your investments happen on a fixed schedule, regardless of how you feel about the market that week. It means your bills are on auto pay, so a momentary lapse in attention doesn't become a late fee or a hit to your credit. The 503020 framework: 50% of take-home income to necessities, 30% to discretionary spending, 20% to savings and investments, is a simple starting point that works for most people because it is structured without being rigid. But the specific framework matters less than the act of having one, because a system removes the need for constant willpower, and willpower is a finite resource. It depletes throughout the day. It crumbles under stress. It disappears entirely when you're tired or emotional or sitting on a couch at 11 at night looking at things you want to buy online. A system doesn't require willpower. It just runs. Your savings happen whether you feel like saving or not. Your investments grow whether you remember to invest or not. The system works while you live your life, and that is what makes it the single most powerful financial habit you can build. I want to close with something I've genuinely come to believe after spending a career around people at every level of the economic spectrum, from people who were completely starting over with nothing to people managing more wealth than they could ever spend. The idea that financial success is primarily about income is one of the most pervasive and damaging myths in this country. I have known people making $300,000 a year who are genuinely financially fragile. One bad quarter, one unexpected expense away from serious problems because their habits were broken. And I have known people making a fraction of that who were quietly, steadily building real wealth because they understood a handful of fundamental principles and applied them consistently without exception. The research on self-made millionaires says the same thing. A large percentage of them built their wealth on ordinary incomes through disciplined, consistent financial behavior, not through windfalls, not through getting lucky on a single investment, not through earning extraordinary sums of money. Your financial future is not waiting on a raise. It's not waiting on a better job market. It's not waiting on anything external. It is being determined right now by the habits you either have or don't have, the decisions you're making or avoiding, the system you've built or haven't bothered to build yet. So here's the challenge I'm leaving you with. Don't try to fix all 7 mistakes this week. Pick one, just one. Track your spending for 7 days. Set up a $50 automatic investment. Open a savings account and put $100 in it right now. Cancel one subscription you forgot you had. One change, one decision, because that's actually how this works. Not through a dramatic overnight transformation, but through a single good decision that builds enough momentum to make the next one easier. That's where it starts. Now, go make the decision